Hey guys, my name is Sandeep Patel. In this video, we are going to solve one more problem on the recursion. So given an array, we have to return true if array is sorted in ascending order. Otherwise, we will return false. Right? So this is a really simple problem. And we are going to solve this using the recursion technique that we learned in my previous video. If you haven't watched my video on the recursion technique, I would suggest you do that first, because that will give you a clear idea on how to approach recursion problems, right? All right, so let's get into this. So in my last video on recursion, I said that we're going to solve any array problem using two-step approach, right? So step number one is breaking the problem into subproblem, and the step number two is solving that subproblem, right? When you solve the subproblem, the problem becomes really small to understand, and you can solve that using a simple logic, right? Okay, let's understand this. So let's say that you are given this function, right? So you're calling each sorted function with an array, right? And it has value 3, 1, and 2, right? So our first task is to breaking the problem into subproblem, right? And the way I would do this is like I'll take the array that is the input array and then remove one first element from the array and then call the same function again, right? So basically I removed one element from the array and this array becomes smaller, right? And next time we're gonna remove one more element, right? And until we have no more element in the array, right? So basically what we are doing here is that we are slicing array's element by one, so that the problem becomes really small to tackle, right? And when array has no more element, so this small problem we can easily tackle, right? So we can say that when array is empty, it is already sorted, but because there are no more element inside, right? It's already sorted. So we're gonna solve that base case first. So step number two, we solve base case first, right? So base case is when array length becomes less than equals 0, right? In that case, we return the same array, right? The blank array. Oh, sorry, we return false in this case, right? Yeah, because sorry, we return true because blank array is already sorted. That's what we said, right? All right, and now we need to put the logic where we slice one element at the time and call the same function again, right? So basically you can use this same function, you can call the same function and slice one element from the array, right? So this line of code does exactly what we need here, right? So it takes the initial array, removes the one element from the array and calling itself, right? So we are going into a recursion until we have single element, right? Or no more element in the array, and we return true when there are no more elements in the array, right? It's an empty array. However, this will return true all the time, right? Even for the valid or invalid array. If you run this code, you're gonna see is true, right, in all cases. But that's not what we want, right? We want to see if array is sorted or not. Okay, so how can we do this, right? So basically what we can do here is that whenever we remove the first element, right, we're not using this element to do anything useful, right? But what we can do is we can use the first element, compare it with the next element, right? And you can clearly see that the first element is greater than the second element, so that is false, right? In this case, array is not sorted. So we can do the same thing here. If we compare the array's first element, if that is greater than array's second element, right, then we can return false, right? Because array is not sorted. Otherwise, array is already sorted, right? So this simple logic, so this is step number one, and breaking the problem, right? So we broke the problem, we addressed the base case, and we added the logic that determines whether array is sorted or not, right? So now if I run this code, it gives me the correct answer, right? When array is empty, it returns true because it's already sorted. When array has 1, 2, 3 element, they're in order, right? So 2 comes after 1, 3 comes after, 2 comes after, before 2, sorry, 2 comes before 3, right? So this is in ascending order, right? And this is invalid, that's why it's written false, and we see it's false, right? Okay, so now we calculate the time and space complexity of this problem, right? So in time complexity, we simply look at the statement and see how many times this statement runs. If it runs one time, we will say, okay, this is O of 1 because it's running one time. If it's running multiple times and it is dependent on the array input, right? And then we can say that we have to find out what the time complexity of that particular code. So in this case, this runs single time. This code also runs single time per execution. But this code, it's calling the same. This creates the recursion, right? It's calling itself, and how many times until the array size becomes 0, right? So it started with the array length. Let's say the n is the array length, right? So this function calling itself n times, right? So it's where n is the array length, and once it's becomes 0, it stops, right? So this creates a recursion, and that's the reason why it's O of n time, right? How about the space complexity? In space complexity, we are concerned about the variables. We're not using any extra variables. However, we are using call stack, right? What is call stack? So basically, when in the recursion, the function is calling itself, it adds those calls into a stack, right? And so however many call it makes, that many stack function calls are in the element, right? So for example, let's assume that this is a call stack, right? And this call stack is basically n, right? O of n, the array length, right? And so this call stack also occupy memory, and that's the reason why space complexity would also be the O of n, right? Because we count the call stack memory towards the space complexity. So I hope you like this video. Please do like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next video. Thank you.